7 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the April Volney regular town board meeting. If you'd all rise, Jim Ridgway will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Byron, will you give the roll call, please?
Councilman Ridgway.
Here.
Councilman Rose.
Here.
Councilwoman Smart.
Here.
Councilman Warner.
He will be along in a little while.
Supervisor McFarland.
Here. Jess is working some overtime, and he'll be along about 7:30, I understand. At the last meeting in March, you asked that Bill Buck be in attendance. He has to work tonight. They're putting in a new pharmacy at the Tops Market where he works, and he had to be there tonight, and he sends his apologies to everybody. The next item of business is the minutes of the March 14, 1992 regular board meeting. The drafts have been sent to all the board members. I will entertain the motion that they be approved.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Point of information, Supervisor. These minutes, if you read them, they only paint half the picture. And by that I mean questions are asked but no answers are given on the different parts that are mentioned. And I'm wondering why we're even including all this copy if it isn't going to tell the whole story. By law, we're only obligated to print the motions, the resolutions, and so on, and who votes what on them. And I'm just wondering why we are only painting half the picture here and not the entire painting. And I say that because if you compare these minutes to the Planning and Zoning Board minutes, you get a pretty complete picture of what went on that night. But these minutes don't do that. And just for an example, I asked a question. I asked what the time frame was for completion for the data collection, and that's all that's mentioned. There was no answer to my question. I think it should be in there. I don't know why those things are left out, but that's one good example of these minutes that are not very comprehensive. And I'm just suggesting if we're going to do it, let's do it all the way, or not do it at all, just have the resolutions on these minutes.
Howard, that's a valid question. However, you did get a draft of these minutes several weeks ago, and you will be getting them several weeks prior to every single board meeting, as I have in the past. Mm-hmm. If you have such questions, you're welcome to ask them, and we will include them in the minutes. So you have had an opportunity to ask any question or see any answer that you want to see in there.
I understand, but I shouldn't have to rewrite the minutes every month.
Byron, will you poll the board?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
No.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner is not here. Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. The next is the bills and transfers, and move that vouchers number 130 through 164 of the general fund in the amount of $18,603.70, and vouchers numbers 62 through 89 highway fund in the amount of $15,803.34. Having been audited, the supervisor is hereby authorized to pay same from funds available. Do I hear it moved?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Byron, will you poll the council, please?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
No.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. Under communications, I have received a notice from Scott Chatfield, who has filed local law number 2 The filing date in Albany is March 10, 1992. This relates to the $200 fee per lot in major subdivisions in lieu of providing parkland for recreation. Next is committee reports. Assessors. Ms. Fay here. Claudia, do you have any report?
We had Janet Massell come down this week, and she installed the RPS software on the assessor's computer and all the files that the state has on the parcels in Volney. So that's available for the data collection people when they start.
Thank you. Planning board, is Kevin here? Did he submit a report to you, Byron, by any chance?
Sure.
Zoning board, Jean?
We've got a lot to cover here. The month of March was a really challenging one for the zoning board, and I know a lot of you know about the various public hearings that we held. We made the following decisions. On March 18th, a 12.5-foot area variance on the east side of the Walsh property, which is a home currently under construction on Rowley Road, was denied, primarily because of a self-created hardship. The garage on the house currently under construction was built before a building permit was issued. However, a 10-foot area variance on the west side of the property was granted. Second, an area variance was granted to Mr. Peter Giudilli of County Route 57 to construct a 30 by 40-foot garage on his property located in an agricultural zone. The third public hearing was an interpretation of the zoning ordinance to determine what use the Trail of Terror on Clifford Road would fall under. The board passed the following resolution. The Trail of Terror is a recreational use which puts it in the category of general uses, nonprofit clubs, or recreational use. Therefore, as it stands now, the Trail of Terror is a permitted use with site plan approval. But the Zoning Board of Appeals would like to make a recommendation to the town board that recreational uses be moved into a special use permit category to allow for additional control in the future, because we foresee more operations like this coming into the town, and it would give the town some additional regulation if it was put into that kind of a category. So I think it's something that we'd like you to consider. On March 25th, we held two more public hearings. A 7-foot side yard variance was granted to Mr. and Mrs. Willard Rowley of 247 Maple Avenue to install a bathroom. And the second public hearing, which was a little more controversial, was an interpretation of the zoning ordinance regarding whether tractor-trailer parking is an allowed use under the category of commercial parking lot in a B1 zone. A motion was passed that evening stating that tractor-trailer parking is not allowed in the category of commercial parking or commercial parking lot. In the ordinance, commercial parking lot falls under business uses per section VA7 subparagraphs 4, 8, and 9. We did, however, pass a second motion. The ZBA recommends that the town board address tractor-trailer parking in the town of Volney. We feel very strongly that it's something that needs to be looked at. There's a second recommendation. During the month of May, we will have 2 more public hearings coming up for area variances. One was submitted by Mr. Michael Facto of County Route 6, and what he'd like to do is build a garage at the rear of his property, and he'll need an 18-foot rear yard variance. And also Mary and Paul Tetro of 261 Maple Avenue. They're going to need 2-foot area variances on the east and west side of their property to install a 26-foot round swimming pool. So that's what's coming up during the month of May. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Dan Russo, building inspector.
For the month of March, we issued permits for 1 double wide for a total of $124, 2 houses for $398, and 1 septic system for $20. 4 permits for the month of March, a total of 13 for the year. That puts us 5 behind last year at this time. Total fees taken in for the month month of March were $542, puts us at a yearly total of $1,296. That puts us $695 ahead of last year at this time. Inspections for the month were 10 new construction, 9 zoning, 6 fire safety inspections, and 4 site inspections, for a total of 29 inspections for the month, bringing the yearly total to 98. It's a little slow right now, but I think now that the good weather's getting here, permits are going to start running out. We also had our building permit seminar on April 4th, and I was very pleased with the attendance. I think we had about 45 people here. Lasted about 2 hours. A lot of good questions were asked, and basically I think people went away with a lot of questions cleared up, a lot of questions answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. In that seminar, Dan did a very good job, and it was well attended, as he said, and I commend you for putting it on. Thank you, Dan.
Dave, if I could, I'd also like to commend Dan, because there were people here from other townships that said that it was such a great idea that they were going to recommend it to their town boards. So it looks as though it's a really good thing, and you should be commended for starting such a program, Dan.
Thank you. I don't see Diane in the audience. She was a little sneaky last month, in hiding from me. So I guess she's not here. Jim, do you have a report?
I don't have anything on dog control, because I thought she was going to be here.
Bob Kerping, Highway Superintendent.
I've got his report.
Thank you.
Highway Superintendent's monthly report, March 1992, 16 days plowing and sanding, 6 days maintaining machinery, 4 days cold patching roads, a day replacing signs that were damaged, and a day draining water in the ditches. Wages for March 1992, $21,938.75. Repair and maintenance and supplies, $15,803.34. Total expenditures for March, $37,742.09.
Thank you, Byron, for giving the highway report. Recreation report, Randy Bennett, our new recreation director.
He isn't here right now. He called me a while ago. He said he would be here hopefully by 7:30, and I told him we'd put him on when he got here. We'd move the agenda back. So he is going to give a report when he gets here.
Thank you very much, Jim. Any other reports? Under old businesses, is there any old business?
I have a couple items for the supervisor. I was reading in the paper here this past month, and the town of Minetto supervisor received a letter from Tom Savage, the town of Palermo supervisor, regarding sales tax. And in that newspaper article, it mentioned that he sent letters out to all the towns, and I'm wondering why we weren't made a copy of that letter when it came here. It was regarding sales tax that the county wanted to impose.
Yes.
Is there any reason why we didn't receive copies of it, the board?
No. No reason.
No reason? Because I asked a couple meetings ago if we could be copied everything that comes in. I mean, this is a 5-member board, and we all should be aware of what's going on. And that was a very important letter that he wanted us to address. And I'm just wondering why you held that back from us.
Didn't intentionally do it, Howard.
Well, I think probably we should address that letter sooner or later. I mean,
Well, we will. We definitely will. I think it's an issue. It's an issue that this whole county is going to be the major issue that's going to come before every single person, especially the officers, the legislators, and the supervisors and town council people. Is probably the major issue of this year as to the status of the sales tax. And we will be, all of us, participating in various activities related to that.
Okay, Mr. Van Schack made a comment at today's legislative meeting that he was going to meet with the supervisors of all the towns to discuss this. I would appreciate knowing when that meeting is, when you find out, because I would like to attend myself. I think it's important that all council people should be aware of that, if that's not a problem.
There is a Chamber of Commerce breakfast roundtable for next week, and the Chamber of Commerce, at my suggestion, invited every supervisor in the county to attend that breakfast, and I will be attending that in Volney. It's an informational meeting only.
One other comment. I asked last month, actually I asked in January about the monies that we had from the state last year and what they're being used for and where they came from and so on. And I asked last month if I could have documentation. Do you have that tonight?
Yes,
When will I be seeing it?
you will be hearing it in a few minutes. Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
The first piece of old business, it was questioned last month about the bond anticipation note interest rate, and I'd like to explain that when you go out and get a bond anticipation note, you do not apply for the rate, until a few days, literally a few days before you need the money. And so you hold off because the rate is very variable, and it can vary from a whole percentage point, and it depends on what day you lock in on. So I applied last Monday for use last Monday as the dated date, what they call. Let's see, one bank declined. North Star offered 5.75% interest, and Marine is getting the BAN, bond anticipation note, because they are giving us an interest rate of 4.92%, which I think is very good. I'm about to read a statement. This statement is a partial answer, or a complete answer, I should say, to Howard Rose's question. And if members of the press would like a copy of this, it will be available to them from Byron, the town clerk, following this meeting. At each of the town board meetings, Councilman Howard Rose has questioned me about the source of funding for the restoration of salaries made at the organizational meeting on January 2. My ongoing reply that there is ample revenue that is available and not budgeted is obviously not believed by Councilman Rose, since he persists in asking the same question, and again tonight. The last time at the March 14 board meeting, when he publicly requested a written report to be submitted to him prior to tonight's meeting. It is written, and since we all espouse openness in government, will be publicly read. The answer I just gave is somewhat simplistic, and to further explain requires some understanding of the budget process. In making up a town budget, you are basically setting spending limits for accounts or individual appropriations. These are not supposed to be exceeded. Payments charged to these accounts are made from a large pot called the general fund, which consists of money received called revenue. The process starts with the budget officer preparing a 59-page document for submission to the town board for discussion at budget work sessions beginning in the fall. Supervisor Don Kitts acted as budget officer in the preparation of the 1992 current budget, and he had filled in the appropriate first 3 columns of the town budget document. Now these columns are titled. The first one is actual last year, 1990. The second column, budget this year as amended, 1991. And the third column, budget officer's tentative budget, 1992. After several work sessions, the fourth column, the preliminary budget 1992, is agreed upon, and these are the figures that are presented in a somewhat more concise form at the budget public hearing. During these work sessions which I attended, Supervisor Kitts was frequently asked the current, that was 1991 then, status of various accounts, and based upon his answers, and in conjunction with the 1990 figures, prepared the preliminary budget. Unfortunately, during this whole budgetary process, the figures used in the first column, actual, last year, 1990, were almost entirely incorrect. Supervisor Kitts had inadvertently inserted not the actual 1990 numbers, but rather the 1990 budgeted numbers. Not only was this done in the appropriations section, but also in the revenue section. Thus, the figures in the actual 1990 appropriations section were overstated, with the exception of salaries, and the figures in the revenue section were almost always understated. In a review of this budget with Paul Kimball several days before the budget public hearing on Tuesday, November 12, we discovered this error and promptly called it to Supervisor Kitts' attention. At that time, I didn't want to publicly embarrass the supervisor and the town board members with the fact that throughout the budget preparation process, they had referenced almost entirely incorrect figures. Supervisor Kitts then immediately corrected the 59-page town budget to reflect the actual 1990 figures. A few duplicates of that document were made for the town board and one for myself. At Supervisor Kitts' direction, and as is customary, a more concise version was prepared by the town clerk as a handout for the budget hearing and contained the exact same figures as in the corrected town budget document. At the start of the hearing, Councilman Rose complained that the handout was both, and I quote from the minutes of the hearing, both anonymously prepared and unauthorized, and he then melodramatically tore it up. When Supervisor Kitts attempted to explain the situation, Rose interrupted him, and again I quote from the verbatim minutes of that hearing. Kitts, Howard, one reason this was printed up was the first part of the budget, the actual, then Rose interrupts, well, who printed it up, Don? I'd like to know. Kitts, the town clerk. Rose, the town clerk isn't authorized to do it without some help, unquote. Councilman Rose then questioned me about my involvement, and I again quote Councilman Rose. Did you have this thing prepared for us this weekend? I, of course, denied it. I found the accusation by innuendo by Councilman Rose that I had personally changed budget amounts for whatever reason to be an insult, especially when that accusation was reported in the Palladium Times the next day. I want to emphasize the fact that individual accounts have no credit balances at the start of the year. There is only a spending limit. Therefore, there is no robbing of Peter to pay Paul at any time. Each account stands on its own. The main point here is this: was and is there sufficient money available to pay the $9,753 toward the 1990 and 1991 salary restorations in 1992? That question, for me, was very simply answered by asking the town bookkeeper toward the end of last year what our bank balance was in the general fund. The answer was that it exceeded $50,000. This is borne out by the published annual report of the supervisor for the year ending December 31, 1991, which states a balance in the general fund of $48,693. However, $20,000 of this was earmarked in the 92 town budget for tax reduction, thus an available balance of $28,693. Coincidentally, this figure is almost $1,000 less than the state aid that was received in September of 1991 and that the town board was unaware of. However, I indicated earlier that anticipated revenues were
and should be understated. Therefore, I took a very conservative approach, and with the benefit of 1991 actual figures and 3 months of known income for 1992, found 7 accounts in which the revenue should increase over budget by a total of over $32,000. As an example, the account with a major projected increase of $15,000 over budget is titled mortgage tax. Budgeted for 92 was $30,000. When you consider that the actual figure for 91 was $68,680, that $15,000 increase over $30,000 is indeed conservative. Another is an $8,000 increase in an account titled Other Payments in lieu of taxes. Other accounts with probable increases over budget are Zoning and Planning Board fees, $1,000, interest and earnings, $750, cable TV, $3,000, fines and forfeited bail, $2,000, and building permits, $2,500. In addition, we now know of budgeted state aid for 92 in the amount of $25,110. I know that all of this potential revenue sounds like a tremendous overkill as an answer to Councilman Rose's question. I'm going to tell you this. This has been the relatively good news of my statement. And now for the bad news. During the budget process, not only did the supervisor acting as budget officer, plus the town board, not know of the receipt of $29,680 in state aid in 91, not know that the actual figures for 1990 in the budget preparation document were budget figures for 1990. They also didn't recognize that the last page of figures in the budget preparation document for the general fund appropriations were not added into the account titled Total Appropriations in the 1992 adopted budget. They were simply overlooked. The accounts on the subject page 16 were debt service principal, $58,500, and interest, $20,520. They total $79,020. The appropriations listed on pages 2 through 15, remember 16 is the last one, of the adopted budget total $325,936, and this is the figure carried to page 1 on which our taxes are based. In other words, we now have a shortfall of that $79,020 in our budget for 1992. The only fortunate part of this gross oversight by the previous administration is that if you total the year-end available budget, less some unencumbered money, the additional projected revenue, the anticipated state aid, plus a portion of the $15,000 contingency fund, the town of Volney will, hopefully, break even this year. This precludes any unforeseen expense over a very few $1,000s. As the fiscal officer of this town, I will have to watch expenditures and cash flow very, very carefully. It is unfortunate, bordering on illegality, that the public never saw the document that became the 1992 adopted budget. The figures were only verbalized by Supervisor Kitts at a hastily called special meeting on November 26, the day after Thanksgiving. Remember, at the November 12 public hearing on the 1992 budget, there was almost no dissent by the public with the 1992 figures listed as the preliminary 1992 budget. What followed that hearing was politically motivated, combined with gross incompetence, all during the budget process. I realize this statement was rather lengthy, and I will be glad to discuss it or document what I have said following the meeting. I will now entertain public comment
on
Do I get an
resolutions
opportunity
only.
to respond to that, Mr. Supervisor? I mean, you made some pretty strong statements there. I hope you're gonna give me an opportunity to say something.
All right, Howard?
First, let me ask you, did you just figure this up, or when did you realize all this took place?
Which?
Everything you just read there, did you just compile this, or have you known this for a while, or when did you really realize all this happened?
Well, first of all, I realized that you were using incorrect figures back when you were, back in late November, and as I said, called it to Supervisor Kitz's attention. I learned of the state aid at the same time you did in early this year when it was published in the newspapers, and I learned of the incorrect addition, the $79,000 that is missing a few weeks ago.
So you overlooked it last year too, while you were working right along with us on the budget?
No, that addition was made, Howard, at the last minute. We never saw the documents on which that
No,
addition was made.
I mean, before you took office this year, you realized that.
How could I realize it? I would have called it to your
Well,
attention.
then you overlooked it then. The same thing you're accusing us of, you overlooked it, yet you were scrutinizing this budget as well as we were.
Howard, I never saw the document until,
The document was public information when Byron received it to type it, and that was back in November of last year.
but the final document was the final budget was made at that November 26th meeting, and not a single person, other than yourselves, worked on that budget, and the public had not seen it.
There was copies of it available in the town clerk's office, so I don't know how you...
They were not available. I will
My point
argue that
is, if you were aware of all this stuff last year, you had no problem reinstating salaries and everything else that are going to contribute to the shortfall that obviously we're facing now. Also, the town supervisor at the time made himself his own budget officer. We have no part in that. He decides what he wants to do with that, whether he wants to hire someone or do it himself. The only information we get is what we get from him. We have to trust his judgment that he's doing the right thing and that things are accurate. We don't know that otherwise. We do not get paid to do that part of the job. We just go through it and scrutinize it with him. We were told to fill in zeros under state revenue sharing, and you were at those meetings when we were told that. I don't know if our former supervisor was aware that we received a check for $29,680 or not. If he didn't, he was neglecting us there also, but I'd like to know why he wasn't informed of it if he wasn't. Because we have a town clerk, we have a bookkeeper that should have made him aware of that, I would think. But in any case, we had to pencil in zeros. That's what we were told. And we couldn't get any other information from anybody else, so that's what we had to work with. Now, I was told that you knew about it last year, that you were in this town hall almost every day, working with Byron on your campaign, and you knew exactly what was going on with the budget. So I'm sure they told you about that. I would be very surprised if you weren't aware of it. But the fact of the matter is, we also received the mortgage tax at the end of the year that wasn't budgeted either, so there's some more money, which you did mention. But someone is doing something illegal here, and it isn't the town board. And so your accusations, I don't know if they're specifically directed at me or former town supervisor Don Kitts, but you were aware of most everything that was going on. As far as that paper that I tore up at the meeting, I was told by Supervisor Kitts that you and Byron worked on it over the weekend. And it was unauthorized if you did work on it. You denied it, so be it. But that's what I was told. And we did not agree upon a preliminary budget. We had a meeting scheduled for a Saturday to approve a preliminary budget. Don Kitts called us and canceled the meeting. The next week, we noticed it was written up in the paper. Byron had published the salaries for this coming year without our approval. So there was games being played last year. Even though Jesse, Marie, and I were the majority of the board last year, it does not mean we have total control of everything, because the powers that be were not us. And I can tell you that a lot of games were played last year with the money that the taxpayers of this town pay into this town, and it was wrong. And we were not part of that. That's my statement on it.
All right. Any public comment on the resolutions? Hearing none, I will proceed with resolution number 92/95. Move that the Town Board of Volney, in accordance with Section 4-104 of the election law, do hereby designate the following place in each election district in the town at which the meeting for the registration of voters and for any elections to be held, such designations to be effective for 1 year following the 1st of May, 1992. District number 1, March Road Fire Station. District number 2, Mount Pleasant Methodist Church. District number 3, Volney Municipal Building. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Second. Any discussion? Byron, will you poll the board?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner. Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. Resolution number 92-96. Whereas, since considerable economies of garage operation, in combination with providing a needed community service for the disposal of used motor oil, proposals were solicited for waste oil heaters. Bids were received from Heating Alternatives, Inc., and that was a Resner waste oil heater RA235 plus oil storage tank for the amount of $4,490. Thrifty Quick Change, that is a clean burn waste oil heater, CB-90-BH, plus oil storage tank, $4,375, and United Energy Systems for the exact same unit as Thrifty Quick Change. And I will make that motion, and on the recommendation of the Highway Superintendent, Bob Kerping, on his recommendation, accept the low bid of United Energy Systems, and I will move that the bid of United Energy Systems for the clean burn waste oil heater CB-90-BH plus oil storage tank in the amount of $4,300 be accepted. And I will move that. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Fine.
Highway Superintendent here, any chance? No. I have a few concerns with this, and I called the DEC just to get their input on this also. And what they told me was that it's just been recently that they've allowed municipalities to do this. And it was only just last year that they allowed them to accept motor oil, used motor oil from the public. I don't know if that's in here. You didn't mention whether or not we were going to, community service, okay. If that's the case, what he told me was that we have to assume all liability for what we accept. In other words, if someone gives us contaminated oil and it contaminates the tank, we're responsible to have that oil removed and taken and disposed of properly. Also, it could cause other problems with the furnace too when you're just accepting oil from anyone. The other thing he mentioned was that to do it properly, you need a very efficient filtering system, which a lot of them don't have. I don't know if this one does or not. I don't know that much about these, and I don't know if it was checked into to find out if this was going to be a clean burning system. But even the cleanest ones aren't that efficient either. Checking with some people that have them, neighborhoods that have them in them, there is a problem with an oily residue and dirty snow around the vicinity of these things. So there probably is some environmental impact to a neighborhood when you have these. The other question I have is who's going to be collecting the oil? Are we going to need to hire someone to do this, or how are we going to handle that part of it? And if it's going to be an operation like that, it sounds to me like we're going to have a man available to collect it. Has that been considered?
Well, first of all, I can't answer to the pollution because obviously you checked into that. And I doubt very much, since there are quite a few places that use this system, I doubt if they can be all that offensive. But one of the things that we will do is save considerable money. Right now, based on our present usage, we are paying over $1,000 a year simply to take care of the town's used oil, in combination with the fact that it will be used, that waste oil that we get rid of will be used in heating the town garage. So it gives us basically a double whammy. We also can provide a community service of accepting used motor oil, and I know there is filtration systems in the, built into this whole system.
Can I ask a question?
Not supposed to go.
Not supposed, well, is the heater just going to be at over here at the highway department?
Yes, it's used, it's an
All you're
internal.
using.
It's inside the building and is used to provide heat to the building. Not 100% heat, of course, but it helps to, it will reduce our town's heating bills considerably, used inside the garage.
What do we do with the oil now?
Commercial outfits charge $30 a gallon to take it away.
And then what do they do with it?
A gallon, a barrel.
Barrel.
A
Barrel?
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a
And then what do they do with it?
What? I thought Bob said
They burn
No, a barrel.
barrel, okay. What do they do with it?
Yeah.
I assume the same thing. It's used for heating.
So then why shouldn't we do it, Howard?
Well, if you live next door to it, maybe you would question that. Apparently you don't. I wouldn't want my neighbor burning oil and having...
I know there's people out there that are just dumping this used oil from their cars and whatever on the ground. It's basically doing the same thing.
So this is a lesser of the
Or
evils
worse.
in your mind then, right?
As far as I'm concerned, it is. They're trying to filter it, they're trying to look at it and do something with it.
Well, that's why I was asking a question about the filters, because some filters do the job, some don't, and I just wanted to know if they could check that out. You know, I'm just raising questions.
When you burn oil in your home, it's basically the same thing as an oil burner in your own home, except this is a cruder version, and is filtered, and it's designed to burn used motor oils, basically.
But when you're receiving motor oil from the public, you don't know what you're getting. They could pour turpentine in with it, they could put gasoline in with it, you could have an explosion over there. I mean, who's gonna monitor that? Who's gonna screen it? I mean, there are, you know, if it's done in a garage where the mechanics change oil every day, they know what they're dealing with. They're taking it out of a car and they're using it. But we don't know what we're gonna be getting here, and that's why I questioned it. I think it's a valid question.
The garages are mandated, people that change their own oil, the garages are mandated to accept oil, and we can be just like a garage and accept it. Any further discussion?
Yes, Dave, I have
Yes.
a question. Is was this a public bid, or was this done under the new resolution that was made a month ago, the 9286?
We went to three, Bob went to three different outfits, as you can see, and got
It was done
proposals.
under the new resolution?
I believe so.
Well, then what do we do about the resolution that's on the books that was never rescinded, that anything had to be bid over $3,000? I'm not against this furnace,
Okay.
but the resolution is still on the books that anything over $3,000 has to be publicly bid. It's never been removed. It was made 2 or 3 years ago. I am not against this oil burner because I know the expense of, as long as it's safe and it's not polluting, it's a good idea. But we still have a resolution on the books and to bid anything over $3,000.
I can't answer that, Jess. Can't.
I thought this would have replaced that particular motion, Jess, and that's why I'm looking at the minutes for. That's what I thought we had done. I thought we had modified.
I believe it does replace it.
It was never mentioned of replacing it. Just as the resolution come up to instate to do it this way. And I got to thinking about this, and I looked it up, and there was a resolution, anything over $3,000 had to be bid, and it's never been removed from the books. Before we get into any more.
All right. Okay. Any problem with proceeding with the vote?
As long as, you know, the filtering system is in there where we're not putting a lot of pollutants in the air.
We will not allow it.
And I gotta go along with what Howard says, that public bringing oil in, somebody's gonna have to watch that they're not,
I agree.
not mixed with something.
I agree.
If the filtering system takes care of this, I don't know. Because it could get dangerous. And yes, I know it's getting expensive to get this oil disposed of at $30 a barrel. Before they used to pay you, now you pay them.
How much
I'm
is it
sorry.
going to cost for
I'm sorry.
insurance?
Uh,
to cover?
Yes.
How much is it going to cost for insurance to cover all of it?
No increase in insurance.
Are you sure it will be covered? That this air pollution does bother people, that has lung problems, and it doesn't take very much to bother them, and you're going to have insurance to cover that?
I don't think there will be,
I can't go in homes that have air, oil, so I just wondered how come. And I'm going to get...
There's a relationship between insurance and
Well, if I live right across from the burner, and it's going to bother me if it bothers anybody. And I just want to know if you're going to have insurance to cover it.
we have general liability insurance, of course.
For this specific thing. Yeah, I know insurance companies come up, well, we don't cover that. I think you ought to check in and see if you're going to cover it. And if you're going to have people running it that have had schooling and know how to properly do it, and are you going to have filters enough to make it clean? Not a botched up job like they did have an incinerator out there on the Whitaker Road, and that was a terrible smelly thing. And there's so many things we dive into here without following through before you get started.
Assuming we approve this resolution and it gets put in, if we find, and you are the public and you have every right to complain, if you find there is any kind of pollution, you're perfectly welcome to come in and talk to us. And we can change things. If we put it in, we can... Any other...
The only thing I know Northern's got one. I've never smelled anything. Have you?
You're on the wrong side.
No, but I'm saying, we're talking about these oil burners.
Yeah,
And,
the prevailing winds come from the northwest.
Mr. Dyer lives almost across the road, and he would be getting the effects of something.
fumes from his trucks.
Well, the diesels, yes.
Howard, did you say that your brother has one in his garage? Now, it works, doesn't it?
I never said that, Jim, but apparently you know that.
No, you did say that one in his garage. And I just, yes, I did. And the only point I think, if it wasn't running right, wouldn't people in the area complain? Because they're all over the place where I do
My
mine.
question is, my brother, I don't know, I won't comment on my brother, because I don't really know what goes on in his shop. But yeah, they're allowed by law, it doesn't mean I approve of them. That's all I can say.
I'll tell you somebody else that has one and uses it on a regular basis, and that's Earl Longley. And if Mrs. Gould isn't complaining, I don't know if, I'd be mighty surprised if she had problems, she wouldn't be screaming about it. But Earl uses it all the time. Byron, will you poll the town board, please?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
There's not enough information here. I don't know how we're saving money. I see no figures. I don't know who's gonna manage this. I mean, I can't vote on this, no.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Well, in a way, I'm with Howard, but if this is a safe, even if it's not gonna contribute to pollution, I will vote yes.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. Resolution number 97. Whereas there was far too great a disparity in the bids opened at 7 p.m. on April 7 for re-roofing the Volney Municipal Building, JB Construction, $19,860, A1 Roofing, $12,825, Woodward Construction, $10,780,
Milton Baldwin, $8,662. Tim March Contracting, $6,600. Marty C. Halstead, $19,677.14. These are primarily due to insufficient or ambiguous specifications. Therefore, resolved that all bids opened on April 7 for re-roofing the Volney Municipal Building be rejected. Further, that the town clerk be authorized to re-advertise for bids. The specifications as revised for the new roof may be picked up in the town clerk's office during regular business hours. All bids must be received in the town clerk's office by 4 p.m. on May 12, 1992. Bids will be opened at the Tuesday evening work session at 7 p.m. Somebody move this?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Byron, will you poll the council?
One question, do we have the new specs
Not
prepared, or will we have them?
We will be within the next week.
Then, should we say that they couldn't pick up the bids until that time or not? Or is it?
It's understood.
It's understood?
Yes.
Okay, good enough.
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. Resolution number 98. Whereas, while there is an amount of $271,815 in the 1992 town budget under Highway Appropriations account titled General Repairs, and agreement to spend town highway funds between the town of Volney and the county of Oswego must be entered into. Therefore, move that, pursuant to the provisions of Section 284 of the Highway Law, monies levied and collected for the repair and improvement of highways and received from the state for the repair and improvement of highways in the amount of $271,815 may be expended for general repairs upon 61.66 miles of town highways, including sluices, culverts, and bridges having a span of less than 5 feet, and boardwalks or the renewals thereof. Do I hear it moved?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
Under discussion, this is one of those mandatory things, kind of an agreement between the town and the county that must be done every year. Any other discussion? Byron, will you poll the council? Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner. Supervisor McFarland.
Aye.
We need to sign the polling place resolution now. That's the Republican.
Yes. Any other new business to come before us?
I have a couple items. This letter is in our box from the DEC the other day, and it says in the letters, it's from a Sandro Lislos, an environmental engineer to DEC, and it states in here that the towns of Volney and Granby have proposed that sewer service be extended to them. When was this done? Where did this come from? Why are we getting copies of this? I don't recall asking this.
I copied you because we want copies of items I received.
I realize that, but I'm asking, when did we ask to have sewer service extended to the town?
We did not.
It says the towns of Volney and Granby have proposed that sewer service be
Okay,
extended to them.
that relates to the Whitewaters Group and the shopping mall across from the Quality Inn.
Okay, so it was their request, then?
Yes.
It was their request. Okay. Okay, the other item I'd like to mention, former Supervisor Don Kitts had a letter to the editor in the paper here this past week about tipping fees for the residents of the town of Volney. And we met with the county 2 years ago on the landfill issue, and this came up as a topic of conversation at that meeting. And we asked our legislator, Bill Buck, at that meeting to look into it for us. Don Kitts emphasized it quite strongly that we shouldn't be paying tipping fees since we're hosting these facilities in our town. And I have to agree with him. We have the incinerator and 2 landfills, one a superfunded landfill here in the town, and we get no revenues for that. As a matter of fact, we lose revenues because they're tax-exempt property, so we're not getting any tax dollars out of that either. And we also have to bear the burden and the consequences of that type of facility in our town. And I'd like to ask the board permission to write a letter to Legislator Block and pursue this issue with the county on our behalf. I think it's something that the citizens of this town are owed, and it's high time we receive something for that. And I'd like to ask permission to do that from this board.
I would like to suggest that this board, before we write a letter, sit down with Bill Buck and talk to him about the whole issue and invite him for a special meeting, if that's your wish.
Whatever we have to do to get results.
We will do that. Any other new business? Any petitions? Public comment? Yes.
Marie Austin couldn't be here tonight, so she asked me to present to the town on behalf of her and on behalf of the recycling committee a check for $106.80. And this was sent to her directly from the last batch of glass that apparently was up here at the recycling center. So this one wasn't contaminated, which was good to know, because I guess the last one was contaminated with a TV tube. What Marie wanted me to say, and I quote, is in all 3 years of operation, there was never any contamination, except for the incident, of course, right before the election. That's quite a successful track record. Over 100 tons were collected and recycled, reducing landfill space and saving taxpayer dollars. More important, recycling is saving our environment, and that has no dollar limit to many. This will be the last check for the town for collecting garbage. However, the recycling effort is now a way of the future thanks to the insight of the recycling committee and the town board members who supported this environmental effort. That was the first alternative to dumps and incinerators. So, here's the last check.
Thanks, sir. Any other public comment? Yes.
I do think that something could be done in regard to the tipping fees. With the experience that happened last year, if the board is real serious and the legislator does help you out, I think something could be done about the tipping fees. I really do. That we should not have to pay those kind of fees, seeing that we are the host of all the dumps and everything else. And something, we should be represented enough by people sitting up there to do something for the town. And another thing, Mr. Clark was the first one that said it after you took office. He asked that you put microphones up here, and that we haven't seen anything yet. A lot of people say they can't hear a word, but when you're being real adamant about anything, we can sure hear you. And another thing, Clara Van over here said something about the prevailing winds, and you said Mrs. Gould hadn't complained. Well, why would she? Longley's is set back, and the prevailing winds, as most everyone around here knows, are northwesterly, and it wouldn't affect her house. So how can you say that she hasn't complained? There can't be much to it. And I think that's a lot of, can give it a lot of thought about oil, the burning of oil.
At last month's meeting, you said Bill Buck was going to be here to talk about the recreation for the county.
Yes. Were you here at the start of the meeting?
No.
I'm sorry. Then I did announce that Bill had to work tonight. They're putting in a new addition to his pharmacy over in Tops, and apologized to you all that he could not make it. Yes.
Donna Kessler. Mr. Ridgway, you forgot the letters from the children, the correspondence. Do you have those with you tonight?
Sure do.
Could you read those for us?
Sure will. Dear Mr. McFarland, this is from one of the kids who likes the field trips. Speaking for all of us kids, we like the field trips. Please don't take the field trips away. They are fun. Sincerely, Amy Guyette. And the second one. Dear Mr. McFarland, my name is Mike Guyette. I live in Volney. I have been on several field trips with the recreation program. I like going on the field trips with my friends. If Valero and Scriba can have parks for the kids, I would like to know why Volney can't. We would like you to support the town's recreation program as a year-round program. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Mike Guyette. And must have been pretty effective because certainly field trips we certainly are doing, and when Randy gets here, there certainly will be a recreation. Randy is here. My gosh, I didn't see you come in, Randy. So there will be a recreation report, and we're certainly taking these into consideration. I'm glad to see the youth of the community is involved in writing these letters, and I do again apologize for not having them with me last time.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Unless there's other public comment, Randy, we'll catch you later, okay? Randy, you want to give your recreation reports?
This is the agenda that we've come up with for the children in Volney. On April 25th, we're going to have a wood crafts construction of birdhouses and bird feeders. It's going to be in the town hall. It'll be pre-made so that the younger children, being 4, 5, 6-year-olds, won't have to use hammers or anything. It'll all be screwed together. So they can just put them together. There'll be adults here to help them put them together. And it shouldn't only take about 2 to 3 hours for the kids to do this. On May 16th, we're going to be running a swim and gym at the Fulton YMCA. And that's going to be a 2-hour session. The kids will be able to play kickball and basketball. And then they're going to have an hour's worth of swimming. We have hired 3 lifeguards, when normally they have 1 and sometimes 2, just to be on the safe side. We're going to have 3. On May 30th, we're going to have a kite festival. No site has been picked yet. There's 3 of them we're looking at right now. We're trying to find the one most farthest back from the road, away from telephone lines, and also accessible to everybody in the community. So when we find the site, we'll have that advertised in our letter to the schools. On June 20th, we're going to have open bowling at Lakeview Lanes. That's going to be in the late afternoon or early evening. We had it before in the morning, and a lot of the kids at that time of year want to play outside. So we thought we'd give them an evening activity. We're going to try it for once and see if it works. If it doesn't, we'll go back the other way, but we never know until we try. And something we finalized today, on July 3rd, we're going to take a historical boat cruise on Mid-Lakes Navigation on Seneca River, going through the Ballinsville Locks. Now, this is a 1.5-hour trip. It has been sponsored by the state for grants for schools. We're not eligible for that, but this is a narrated trip. It tells the history of the canal and the locks, and we're going to be able to take approximately 100 children on that trip. So that's what we have so far. We are still working on an archery class. We had the folks came in and talked to our recreation committee about working with us, and we're having a problem with equipment. It's quite expensive, but I think we've found a way to get around that a little bit, and we're working on it. And at the next board meeting, I'll have that closer to a final decision on that. But at this time, that's about where we're at right now. And what I would like to ask is, we are in dire need of people coming forward and helping us with the children. We have a group of about 12 to 14 very concerned people in the community who come to our meetings, and they do this all summer long. They work we have 300 to 400 children that come to these things all summer long. We need more people to come in, especially people who can do a craft, or people who really want to get involved with these kids. And we're really looking forward to having more people come to our meetings. So our next meeting will be on tax day at 7:30 here in Town Hall.
One thing maybe, Randy, we can do is get this in the community forum type of thing with the news, and so that the meeting dates are known to people, because I think that the meetings used to fluctuate and people sometimes didn't know when they were.
In the summertime, we're gonna have bi-monthly meetings. One, because we're trying to upgrade our recreation committee, get more people involved. Some people say once a month is not enough, and so we're doing it every other week now. And two, that we have to get geared up for the summer. If we're gonna be running programs in here, as well as the trips, then it's gonna take a lot of planning. You can't just do this, plan it on Wednesday and do it on Friday. It doesn't happen that way. There's too much involved here, especially when we're dealing with 100 to 150 children at a time. 2 to 3 buses go on some of these outings, and we really have to think about it ahead of time. There's a lot of logistics and safety concerns we have to address. So if anybody has any ideas, feel free to call me or come to our meetings. Yes?
Are you hiring lifeguards?
Yes, they're...
There's got to be lifeguards that maybe would volunteer. I know Marie Austin's daughter's a lifeguard. She'll probably kill me for this, but there's got to be lifeguards that will volunteer.
It costs us $5 for 2 hours.
Oh, okay, well then, but
I mean,
I didn't know.
it wasn't a great amount of money.
Okay.
I didn't know if there was anybody, and I had to confirm this date. And when you confirm the date, you have to send a check deposit
So you're hiring from the Y then?
from the Y. They give you one, and then you have a maximum of like 25 or 30 children you can have in there.
Right.
I want to use the whole pool, because if we have 80 or 100 kids down there, there's no way one lifeguard or even 2 can watch. So I said, give me a third for $5 or $10.
Yeah, no, I didn't know.
Because I'm not going to be there. I'll have to be in the gym, because there has to be somebody up there, so I can't be in both places. And as long as it's only $5, I'll let them down to the swimming. So that's all I had to say, and I hope to see some people down there at our meeting on the 15th. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy, very much. Any other questions for Randy? Randy? Yes, sir.
I'd like to know, on the recreation people, they in the last couple of years, they've worked and they try to get a community park developed, and they got one started, and we went through a process of getting fees from developers and stuff like that, and we're supporting a park in the airport. It's a parking lot for air show most of the time, and in order to cover the cost, or say why we have it, is we're for the kids, we're gonna have a park there, and they can justify it. But according to our zoning, recreational use isn't allowed in industrial zone, and the airport's out industrial zone. And people ask me, I don't have no answer to give them on why we're supporting the park in an industrial zone. You know, I'd like to know if somebody could give me an answer.
Very good question.
I can't answer it, of course. I would if I could.
I'll just add a note to that. Incineration is also against our zoning laws. The county seems to do what they want in this town.
Any other public comment?
I just had one more question. I know, I was gonna ask Mr. Buck, the airport field isn't gonna be ready for soccer. We're gonna be down at Van Buren Park, I understand. If you could find out how long that's gonna be. I know the parents put up a pavilion. Is this just are they gonna be doing drainage, or what's the reason for the soccer not being able to use the field right now? I wasn't aware, you know, I just found out that our games are gonna be at Van Buren for some reason, so I was gonna ask them.
I believe it has to do with drainage.
They're putting drainage system in or something for them?
I believe so.
Is that?
But I'll check on it.
The whole season? Or, okay, I was just wondering if the whole season, because I'm not thrilled with just being at Van Buren Park either.
A lot of playing fields right now are unusable because of water problems.
Right, but, you know, we're gonna have them there too. I was just curious how long it's gonna be.
But I will have it. Any other public comment?
Yeah, I'd just like to make one. I saw my phone in there. This is the first time, unfortunately, since the beginning of the year that I've been over here. And when these resolutions get brought up, I noticed tonight there were quite a few people that, when it was open for discussion, there were still some people left that wanted to say something. Now, you people are working for us, and there's one gentleman right there that I know didn't get to say anything. And his view may not be the same as mine, but I feel that he had a right to say something and shouldn't have been cut off and the vote taken before everybody that is here in this hall had a chance to be heard if they wanted to open their mouth and say something. And on top of that, the other thing I would like to say is, you people seem to be arguing amongst yourselves very much. And with the way the whole political arena is, right now, from presidential right on down, I am so sick of everybody arguing. We have this town here, we have things that need to be taken care of, we need to have more tax dollars brought into this town, and instead of fighting about all this little stuff, let's work together. If Howard needs to have testing done on this thing that wants to burn oil, then get it done and get it taken care of so that we can do what we need to do to get this town where it needs to be. Let's stop arguing. I mean, this petty crap is crap. There's no need for it. And if anybody here wants to be heard from before you take the vote on these resolutions, not after, before, they should have the right to tell you how they feel. You are supposed to be representing us. It's not the other way around.
You have an excellent point, and I agree 100% with what you said. You will find in your agenda that just prior to resolutions, there is public comment on resolutions. That wasn't even allowed under the previous administration. The resolutions came before this board. It was voted upon without any public input. You didn't have anything to say until after the resolutions were passed or vetoed.
Okay, can I say one more thing? I don't care what the board did before you. I don't care anymore. I came to those meetings. I watched what went on here. I don't care anymore. We voted you people in so that we could have a new town. That's what we want. Please try to get along and make it work. Please work for us. That's what we want. That's all we want. I don't care what Mr. Kitts did. I don't care what Marie Austin did. She's gone. She's out of here. She runs again, fine, wonderful. We don't have her anymore. Please work amongst yourselves for us and stop arguing and stop asking each other to be nasty to one another, because that's what you're doing up there. It's crazy. Please.
Thank you. Appreciate those comments.
No, I don't know if you do or not.
I do.
But they're there.
Hey, I'm with you. Yes, sir.
My name's Alan Kester. I wasn't at the last meeting, but looking over Resolution 92-91, where I'm trying to figure out what motion was tabled for the whole year. And if this is what I think it is, you're just saying, somebody's saying, we're not going to test, we're not going to do anything for the town of Volney Park until 1993. Am I mistaken, or is that what this says?
Basically, that you are correct. The situation is this. There is a potential liability that this town might have with an unknown cost if it is found that that land is polluted. It is potential. At this point in time, we cannot afford any cleanup costs. Now, the DEC has been notified, and I've read in the paper, and I've read the same thing you probably have, that they are going to come down in the springtime, and they are going to take a look at it. That's what the paper said. And if they say that the land is fine, I will follow their instructions, and very happily follow their instructions. If they say that further testing has to be done, we will of course do it. And so something will happen this year. The DEC will come down and determine that. And I'm very pleased they are going to do it. It may cost us some dollars. I hope not.
I'll just add one point to that comment, if I could. If it does cost anything, regardless of whether the town picks up the tab or the fire department, it's still coming out of the taxpayer's pocket. So I don't see where the difference is there. I think if it has to be addressed, it has to be addressed, and ultimately the taxpayers will be the ones who will pick up the tab no matter which way it goes. So I think the town, as I said before, should assume the liability for that regardless, not shift the burden to the firemen. And from what Kate Lacey told me, I talked to her on the phone about this as well, she said that she doesn't, from the chemicals that were listed, she said they're very minor and they're typical all over the place, not just this site, and that it's a very relatively minor remediation. And so she's confident that it won't be a problem anyway. It could be just removing a little bit of soil or putting a little bit of soil on top of it. So,
What, are we talking about contamination from them going out there and throwing gasoline on a car and then putting it out?
exactly.
I mean, we're not talking about,
driveway, you find the same contamination.
yeah, we're not talking about somebody's got PCBs buried out there.
No, we had some very minor chemicals that were in the report that we got, and they were associated with gasoline products, and which we knew was ultimately there. Yeah, so.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
This is Bob Guyette. On that oil burner, if a garage is burning the oil themselves, which they're taking out of the car, they know what's going into it. If you start collecting from people, everybody in the town, what's going to happen if somebody takes battery acid, dumps it in a jug, mixes it with oil, you burn it, and what if the battery acid don't burn up? Then it's contaminating and polluting the air, which ought to be looked into. I mean, if you're going to burn just the town of Volney oil, okay. But if you're going to go outside and start taking residential oils, I mean, they could be gas in it, and when it goes through, it could blow up.
No, I don't think we are going to take residential oil. What we are going to be looking at is people like Gibson's Bus Service, people that do their own commercial changing their oil, and they have to get rid of it, and it costs them money to get rid of it. And we'll take that from such people, not residential.
Will we charge them for it?
Probably not.
What's going to stop them from putting something in it? Not saying anybody would, but what if it happens?
There are all kinds of possibilities in life.
Okay.
Any other public comment? I'd like to call your attention to future meeting dates. The next regular board meeting will be May 14 at 7 p.m. Previous to that, by 2 nights, May 12, we will audit bills. An important meeting for your information will be next week, next Thursday, April 16, 7 p.m. That is a public disclosure meeting on data collection and revaluation. I urge any of you, if you have questions about data collection and revaluation, to come to that meeting. We had a very informative one, as Claudia said 2 nights ago, on that subject. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. Byron, would you poll the board?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose. Aye. Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye.